Echoes Hugh. Audio Productions. Smooth, sweet sounds. Echoes Hugh Audio Productions proudly presents a J.S. Mensah audio work.
Hi everybody, and welcome to my brand new podcast, Would You Adam and Eve It, with me, Del McCamley. Keep up to date with content from Echoes Hugh Audio Productions by following us on TikTok, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, YouTube and Facebook. Don't forget to follow, like and comment. In the next 20 minutes or so, I'll be talking about issues that affect us all on a national, local and global level. As the famous Blues Brothers once said, issues that affect you, me, them, everybody. Because everybody needs somebody. Somebody to love, miss and kiss and keep you all clued up as just what the hell is going on out there. Because if I don't tell you, then nobody will. Definitely not any of our competitors. So sit back, kick back, relax, grab yourself a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, glass of whiskey, glass of vodka. Oh, glass of whiskey, glass of vodka? What the hell? Who starts drinking at this time of the day? What? My producer just said everybody. No, man, that's not true. Not everybody. Anyway, just relax and know that Del is going to get in there and wiggle and jiggle out the workings of just what the heck is going on in that jolly game we call life. You know it makes sense. So stick with me. I'll put you right. Way back in medieval times, when a king sat on his throne and had pertinent people propelled at his feet to devise ways to rip taxes from the unwashed, psst, that's you and me, folks. All these posh gits started to think about how they could go about this in a sanctioned manner. I mean, if you can't do it in a sanctioned manner, then you might as well be calling it what it is. What is it? Well, if you check out any garden variety thesaurus, you'd find loads of definitions, such as robbery, larceny, stealing, thievery, pilfering, filching, embezzlement, and downright misappropriation of funds. You see, folks, if you want to knock off some poor sod for everything they've got without sending an army out, kicking people's doors in, then you form a regulatory body, and you call it something with a canonical ring to it. You don't call it swiping someone. You don't call it ripping someone off. You don't call it filching, snatching, pinching, lifting or nicking. You call it collecting taxes. So how did they do this? What they did is pull together a cluster of 14th century landowners, churchmen, knights and aristocrats. Then they formed a regulatory body, and then they had a House of Commons, and then, just to make all those swanky henchmen and standouts feel they've got a place in the goblin pecking order, they formed a House of Lords. That's how long the House of Lords has been around, since way back when. So, who can become a member of the House of Lords? And would you wanna? Let's face it, the House of Lords is like some clunky rusted toy that your son or daughter got one Christmas that works with a wind-up key and then they threw in a cupboard come January. A lumbering, coughing and groaning monstrosity that should have been put out for the bin men years ago. The House of Lords is like the flatulence let off by your granddad or gran when they fell asleep in the armchair in front of the Antiques Roadshow or Bargain Hunt, let's face it. OK, so today, the House of Lords has around 800 members. That's more than any other parliamentary chamber in the whole blooming world, apart from China's National People's Congress. 26 spots on those seats are reserved for all the bishops from the Church of England, wobbling to and fro, reminding you of all the inmates within the walls of Arkham Asylum that Batman's banged up. I asked the question again. How'd you get in? How'd you get elected? The answer is, you don't get elected. You just have to be entitled. All those that are entitled, and includes in the words, folks, get a lifetime position, turning up every day, sitting in the rafters, fanning their privileged fringes with bits of paper, sitting on red leather benches and making decisions. Most of the peers in the House of Lords have been put there by former Prime Ministers after being vetted by the Independent House of Lords Appointments Commission. Yeah, right. Boris Johnson managed to chuck in about 90 of his pals, including his Russian tycoon mate, Evgeny Lebedev. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Changed his name to Baron Lebedev of Hampton and Siberia. But that's all right. He on head links to the KGB. What's wrong with that? Might be a good idea to get on this side of Russia these days, you know what I mean? Never shying away from enmeshing himself in controversy, Johnson handed out a peerage to one Charlotte Owen, making her the youngest peer ever at the nubile age of 30. This turned her from a mere Ms. to Baroness Owen. Baroness Owen went to the University of York, gaining a 2-1 in politics and international relations. She went on to work for Bojo for 6 months as an intern before joining him for just over a year as a special advisor. From there, she went on to join Liz Truss. Was she House of Lords material? Was she, really? Other Prime Ministers that were given their favourite little darlings peerages include Liz Truss, you got 49 days to help the economy or it's your badge, who inserted 2 of her Brexit pals and her short-lived chief of staff in as Lords, and Richie Sunak, who recently made David, just call me Dave, Cameron, a peer because he couldn't make him Foreign Secretary until he had a seat in Parliament. There you go. But apart from that, the rest of the people that make up the House of Lords should be squeaky clean and absolutely epitomes of morality, right? Right? Well, not exactly. You see, in 2009, there was the expenses scandal in which the House of Lords didn't exactly come out of it unscathed. It all started when in February 2008, Freedom of Information Act requested details of expenses across the board. Of course, this was met with a lot of snivelling and blubbering by the House of Commons authorities that it was unlawfully intrusive. But 3 months later, the High Court basically told them, hand it over and the game's up and you've been rumbled, my son. Of course, this didn't stop them from pussyfooting around. They conceded, but with the exemption of any information that could be seen as sensitive should be taken out. This didn't stop the Daily Telegraph, who ploughed through the whole mess like kids in a room full of party balloons. They found that a Labour peer, former Trade Union Secretary David Brookman, claimed £50,000 for sitting on his backside, covering travelling money for every day the House of Lords was sitting, even though he never spoke a single blooming word or even put pen to paper. He wasn't on his own. Almost a third of the 800 peers at the time barely done anything in over a year, yet raked in an eye-watering £3.2 million in allowances. 1 in 9 of them never spoke a single word, held a government post or joined any committees. Ever. 46 peers never bothered to vote, not even on Brexit. 46 peers never sat on a committee. 46 peers never held any posts. Yet one peer raked in £25,000 without voting or lifting a blooming finger, while another claimed £41,000 but only voted once in the whole time they were there. Over 270 peers secured more than £40,000 in allowances, with 2 of them grabbing hold of £70,000. Former Lord Speaker Francis de Souza said at the time that it showed what everyone suspects is going on, and that was a minority of peers risk discrediting the hard work of their colleagues. What? I'm sorry, but when did £3.2 million constitute a minority? In what playbook is that even possible? In what realm of reality must you exist to look at £3.2 million of illicit funds stolen off the taxpayer and suggest it's a minor thing? In what Happy Valley cloud cuckoo la la land is £3.2 million seen as a mere sprinkling of misdemeanours? The steel company magnate Swaraj Paul only turned up for 157 days but pulled in over £47,000, only speaking for the House of Lords once. All this despite the fact that he's a blooming billionaire with £2 billion in the bank. Another peer, Lord Cunningham, lugged in £79,000 just last year, and millionaire Lord Bartier, who's since been booted out because of expense claims, tugged in £44,530, even though he never once sat on any committees or spoke to the House at all, ever. But the gold medal for degeneracy has to go to Michelle Mone. For those decent, hard-working mortals out there, let me tell you a little bit more about Ms. Mone. Ms. Mone started her career as a successful Scottish businesswoman, making a fortune as the creator of a patented black backless bra. Married to the millionaire Doug Barrowman, she was made a peer by none other than David Cameron. It's while she was Lord that Ms. Mone became involved with a company called PPE MedPro, who were given 2 contracts to help out the NHS, supplying face masks and surgical gowns during COVID. The face mask deal was for £80.85 million, and the surgical gown deal was for £122 million. In October 2020, due to transparency clauses in public spending, details of PPE MedPro contracts were made public. Links with Ms. Mone and her husband's firm, Knox Group, started to ping on the old radar screen. In December of the same year, it was said that all the contracts had been fast-tracked for a government VIP lane. It wasn't long until the mask had slipped away and the gowns had fallen off, bearing all. See what I did there? Both Michelle Mone and her hubby denied everything, said they weren't involved, bringing in lawyers that declared to anyone that even bothered to listen to them or believe them that any suggestion of an association between Mone and PPE MedPro would be inaccurate, misleading and defamatory. Yeah, that is, unless it's the truth, mate. PPE MedPro said PPE MedPro was not awarded the contract because of company or personal connections to the UK government or the Conservative Party. We all said, yeah, you're lying, mate. In November 2021, the brown stinky stuff spattered against the fan. Something called the Good Law Project, a regulatory body that holds power to account, let the proverbial squirming feline out of the proverbial bag, revealing that Ms. Mone did indeed use her power and influence as a peer to sweeten the deal, both fast-tracking and VIPing PPE MedPro to the front of the queue, bringing in Tory peer and minister Lord Agnew. This is when a red-faced Miss Mone still insisted that she hadn't lied, with a smarmy-mouth lawyer telling her that, having taken the very simple step of referring PPE MedPro as a potential supplier to the office of Lord Agnew, our client did not do anything further in respect of PPE MedPro. Okay, so that means that you've got a company you're involved in, but you weren't really doing anything wrong by passing details on to someone who, at the time, was the Minister for the Treasury, which, in turn, handles the public finance policy for the whole blooming country? Really? When it was asked why Mone, I'm not going to be polite anymore and stop calling her Miss. When she didn't declare PPE MedPro on her Lord's Register of Interests, the smarmy marmies replied, Baroness Mone did not declare any interest as she did not benefit financially and was not connected to PPE MedPro in any capacity. They also said that reports about it were clutching at straws and largely incorrect. Fast forward to 2022, and it was discovered that she did lie and that her husband had profited, both earning $65 million, of which $29 million had been spirited to an offshore trust of which Mone and her 3 kids would be beneficiaries. The National Crime Agency searched both Mone's and Barrowman's homes in London and the Isle of Man, looking into suspected criminal offences in the procurement of PPE contracts by, you've guessed it, PPE MedPro. It was later discovered that the gowns and masks had even been rejected by the government, even though they'd paid for them with £122 million. To add insult to injury, they hadn't even been fit for purpose. Now, I take that quite personally. I had a daughter who was working as a nurse in an intensive care ward during COVID. I take that very personally. Moan quit the House of Lords, facing charges of fraud and bribery. In a later interview with the BBC's Laura Kunsberg, Mona and her husband said they'd lied about the whole thing to protect the family. Recently, the press, or lack of it, hasn't been entirely rosy for the House of Lords where lockdown parties are concerned either. Martin Reynolds, dubbed Party Marty, most infamous, I should say, for declaring bring your own booze during a lockdown garden party at number 10, has been nominated for a peerage. Also given a peerage has been Johnson's ex-chief of staff, Dan Rosenfeld, and Jack Doyle, Johnson's former director of communications, both of whom were involved in rule-breaking. And lastly, Sean Bailey, who was once a contender for mayor and who was snapped at a lockdown Christmas party at Tory HQ in 2020. Let the good times roll. Not a great picture being painted here for the House of Lords, folks. Even though many of us may view the House of Lords as a lumbering dinosaur, maybe there's still some hope. Following Sunak's hellish ploy to deport immigrants to Rwanda, the House of Lords are still fighting him all the way, with one Lord, Ken MacDonald, quoted as saying, "It hasn't got a cat in hell's chance of passing through the Lords." Since trying to get the bill passed, a dozen Lords, part of the Lords on the International Agreements Committee, went over the Rwanda plan with a fine-tooth comb. They found that glaring disparities hit them in their jolly chops, so much so that they grilled James not very cleverly about it until they were blue in the face. On the one hand, Rwanda has been tinged with hues of violence and aggression. All the more deterrent to any poor soul thinking of jumping a dinghy and hoisting up to their shores, right? On the other hand, Sunak and his cronies keep harping on that it's a safe and welcoming haven. Thank the Lord, or Lords, that anyone with half a brain cell can spot the two variances butting the hell out of each other. All this has meant that the Lords voted for postponing the ratification of the Rwanda Treaty, with the Archbishop of Canterbury, himself a Lord and addressed as the most reverend primate, saying that it threatened constitutional principles and the rule of law. All this, even though Sunak still bangs on about the Lords trying to frustrate the will of the people as expressed by the elected House. What does that even mean, mate? You've got more waffle than Birdseye. So, is the House of Lords a good thing or a waste of space? With a reform published in 2022 with the help of Gordon Brown, there's been suggestions to drastically downsize the whole bleeding shebang down to about 200 members. Would that do any good? Would that help in any way? I'll leave you with this one. This one final thought on the whole affair. The comedian John Cleese was offered a seat in 1999 from his home in California and turned it down, blaming the winters over here as the reason. Maybe it would have reminded him of too many Monty Python sketches. What do you reckon? You decide. I've been Del McCamley, and this has been Would You Adam and Eve It? Don't be shy. Tune in for next time. See ya!
Thanks for listening to an Echoes Hue audio productions project. Smooth, sweet sounds. Keep up to date with content from Echoes Hue Audio Productions by following us on TikTok, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, YouTube and Facebook. Don't forget to follow, like and comment. Would You Adam and Eve It is written and presented by Del McCamley. The podcast is directed and produced by J.S. Mensah. Our theme music is by Oleg Mazur.